Good Gab, sponsored by Skillskin, a nonprofit organization empowering individuals with disabilities through employment. Good Gabbers, what's happening? Another week, another great guest. You will not believe it. We're going to learn a whole lot more today about Lutheran Community Services here in Spokane. Today we have the real pleasure to have Shelly Hahn, the District Director of Lutheran Community Services of the Northwest. Shelly, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So what's happening? Tell us more about your organization. I know just a little. I want to know more.
Yeah. So Lutheran Community Services is a tri-state organization. So we have offices in Oregon, Washington, and Idaho. And each of those offices, while falling under the umbrella of the bigger organization, provides services that are specific to the location that they're at.
Okay.
So each office has different programs.
And specialties, if you will? Specialties,
absolutely. So looking at the community that we're in, seeing what makes sense, and then growing those programs there. So there is some overlap. So we have some foster care programs that are similar in two different areas, but it's only because it made sense to that local community to provide services like that there.
Well, so what's our specialty here in Spokane? What are we good at?
Oh, we're good at lots of things.
I imagine so.
Yeah. So we have, so we're located at 210 West Sprague, and it's a brick building. It's a historical building. It's beautiful. Both inside and out, but especially inside. Oftentimes people walk inside and they're like, oh my gosh, I would have never guessed that it was so pretty.
I would not have guessed it either because I've driven by many times, but I've never been inside.
Yeah. There's a big open atrium and it's very pretty in there, all wood flooring. And it's also, it looks little, but it's 4 stories. So we have a basement and it goes up 3 levels, and all of the offices are staffed with folks who are helping the community in different ways. So in that building, we have 3 programs. One is our advocacy program, one is our clinical program, and then we have our child welfare program. So starting with advocacy, we're the community sexual assault provider. So we have advocates who meet survivors of sexual assault in the emergency room. As they present to the emergency room, our advocates meet with them.
So like some of your employees, like advocates, they're getting calls.
Yes.
Anytime, and they're going to get in their car and they're going to go to the hospital.
Yes.
Wow.
And not only our advocates, we actually have a really big volunteer pool who goes through a comprehensive training and also takes on-call shifts to provide those services, because there's enough need in the community that our advocates couldn't do it on their own. So we're always so grateful for our volunteer advocates, because it is not easy. It is not an easy thing to do.
I can imagine. That sounds really emotional.
Yes. So that is one of the programs in our advocacy department. We have crime victim services. So again, advocates who work with victims of crime to help with the legal pieces, the medical pieces, to help walk alongside people and navigate all of those larger systems that are so hard to navigate on your own, and sometimes even with an advocate. They're just big and complicated. That program interfaces with human trafficking consortiums and committees, also interfaces with the elderly population and abuses that happen there. So it is...
Which is unfortunate, it's a big need too.
It is.
We learned a lot. We've had a lot of guests here on this podcast talking about the homeless population and the elderly homeless population, just essentially how they're preyed upon. And that's just awful.
Yes.
So this is some of the work that you're doing and your organization's doing.
Yes.
Helping them be a resource.
Yes.
Incredible.
Yes, often forgotten. Yeah, very forgotten. So those are some of the services that our advocacy program provides. We also have a sexual assault nurse examiner. So that is a nurse who is trained in trauma-informed exams for survivors of sexual assault. And so oftentimes she will also go to the hospital with us or meet survivors at the hospital and provide those services because of her special training.
Wow.
and then the last thing in advocacy I should talk about is we have a courthouse facility dog. And he's a black lab named Walker.
What's up, Walker?
Yes, you can follow him on Instagram or Facebook if you want to. But he is adorable. He has big floppy jowls and he drools a lot. His handler, his name is Mark, and he always has a rag in his back pocket because Walker's
just get a picture ready.
Yes.
Kid ready.
Exactly. And so his job is to work with folks who are disclosing abuse or talking about hard things or sitting in forensic exams and providing comfort. So he knows when to lean on people, when to provide pressure. And it's been particularly with kids. He's super, super effective.
Wow, this is heavy work.
It's a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm.
You said you've been off camera. You're talking about 10 years with the organization?
Well, I've been in my current position for about 6 months. I've actually worked for the organization for 18 years.
18 years. Okay. Well, so you know this work inside and out.
Yeah, some of it. I've always worked in the child welfare department, but I work closely with clinical, and then advocacy is the newest learning for me. I had kind of an overview of the services, but now I'm learning. I'm taking a deep dive and learning more and more all the time.
What inspired you to step up and say, I want to lead this organization?
I think probably the same things that kept me there for almost 20 years. The work is amazing. It's super hard, but it's amazing. And the thing that I think helped me stay was the leadership. Good leadership, the culture of the organization. And most of all, I was able to be a mom and a professional at the same time. So there's really nice balance, kind of work-life balance and respect for how important that is. We can't have our employees working with families and helping the families prioritize their own families while we're not helping our employees prioritize their families.
Right.
Because that's really what we do is family work and all of those things.
Well, that makes sense. I just imagine your employees have to have some incredible boundaries just to be able to step away.
Yes. Yes, we focus a lot on self-care, a lot of trainings about it. We provide a lot of Walker, who I talked about. Sometimes we'll have meeting times where people can just go and hang out with Walker. It's interesting. Almost everyone that works there loves dogs, which is just
really, that's
funny.
a commonality.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes, and if not dogs, cats,
yeah.
or some types of animals. Not everybody, but a high majority.
There's a whole lot of caring individuals here.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, we do a lot of training. We try to, we have an open door policy, so folks can come in at any time to talk to supervisors or peers, to staff, and debrief about whatever they just saw or heard or came from. So it is a really, really supportive environment that way.
How many people are on staff?
Oh, that's a good question. With COVID, it's vacillated quite a bit, but we're rebuilding now. And I would say we're probably around 70 to 75 people working out of that building in different capacities.
This is a big organization, and I don't think I understood the scope, and I imagine some of our listeners didn't either. So that translates for me as like there is a big need in our community for these supports and services.
Absolutely. Our advocacy services have gone up over 50% since before COVID. And so pair that with the workforce shortage, and you can just imagine the people who aren't getting services or their services are delayed because we just don't have the people to meet their needs.
50% increase, that seems astronomical. Like, what's happening in our community? Do you have any ideas around that, or like where does that need change? Oh,
I would just get a little closer to the mic on that end because it has a noise gate, so when she gets too far, it cuts her audio.
Oh, thanks,
okay.
Tony.
Sorry,
it's going to make us look good. Yeah, any insight on why the need's increasing, or is it just, what's happening?
I mean, I have best guesses. I think that, so we work primarily with kids in our clinical and child welfare departments. And I think the loss of structure during COVID that school provides, and safety for a lot of kids, and also for a lot of kids, even the meeting of their basic needs. it was pretty interesting to see when schools shut down. They continued to do a lot of those things. They would deliver lunches to people at home and things like that. But still, the impact was just so great. And then the social delays that occurred. I myself have a daughter who was a freshman at the time of COVID. She's now going to be a senior. And just noticing the difference in how her class has gone through high school, there's a little bit of a delay in a lot of those social components. Because,
totally.
Yeah.
Our daughters are the same age. Yep. So
Yes.
I see exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. So I think there's that. And then I think, that oftentimes manifests into different symptomology, increased anxiety, depression. The isolation creates all of those things. So we see an increase in mental health needs. And then increase accessibility to drugs, I think. And some people turn to drugs to cope.
Sure.
So all of those things wound up into a big messy ball.
And now it's something that we have to start to unwind as a community.
Yes.
So you all have a big heavy lift. How do you partner, or who do you partner with? It sounds like the schools are a group. Mm-hmm. Like, who else are you partnering with to try to engage with people?
Well, I lots and lots of people. So it kind of depends on the program. Our advocacy department partners with the different police organizations in the area, prosecutors, a lot of the legal system folks. Our clinical team, which is outpatient mental health services. So those are kids who are coming in once weekly to see a therapist to work on whatever's going on for them. We partner a lot with Frontier Behavioral Health, PCCA, which is the hospital, mental health hospitalization for youth in the community. And just all other providers who might be able to provide a service that we can't for whatever reason, whether it's capacity or they need a treatment protocol that we don't provide. So we provide all evidence-based treatments. So what that means is someone comes in and they have symptomology, and then we match the treatment to that. And all of the treatments that we use are proven to work.
So these are best practices across the country.
Yes. And so my favorite one is PCIT, which is parent-child interaction therapy. And so that's working with parents and younger kids.
Like what age?
0 to 5-ish.
Okay. So these developmental times.
Yes, that early attachment, those parenting skills. And those are the focuses of that treatment. So we have 2 rooms down in our basement that have like a one-sided mirror. And the parents, after some psychoeducation and learning about what's going to be helpful to them in interacting with their kids, they go into these rooms, and the therapists sit on one side and coach the parents. They have a little bug in their ear and coach them so they can experience some success in interaction with their kids, and then provide homework assignments for practicing throughout the week. So I really love all of the early intervention pieces. And it's one of the things that I hope to grow more in this position is early intervention services for younger kids.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like that is a place where we can really help maybe change a cycle or help these young people lead maybe more successful lives as adults. Like if we are intervening early.
Yes.
So that's true.
Spot on. Yes.
Well, how can people support, yourself and, Lutheran Community Services in this work? Because I feel dumb. Like, I can't believe I didn't know, like, the breadth that you all are working on and just how important this work is. So how can our listeners, connect and help?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, like I spoke about in the advocacy department, volunteer advocates that's going to, take us a pretty good chunk of time. But a lot of people really enjoy the work. They enjoy the learning.
Yeah. Let's walk through that a little bit. So I want to be an advocate. What does that look like? What's the commitment?
So you sign up for an advocate training, and we have them about twice a year, and we host them ourselves. In our office. And so it's about 30 to 40 hours of training to get up and running. And then you continue to staff and train with the advocates who are staff advocates, hear about cases, learn about interventions, that type of a thing. And then you start to go on call. So you have an on-call phone, and you have support, you have backup from a supervisor or a staff advocate through the entire process. And you don't go on call until you're ready. But then you start responding out to the hospital and helping to meet with survivors and provide them with resources and connections and information.
What are some of the feedback that you get from the folks who are volunteering and helping in this work? Like, what's driving them?
I would say for some of them, it's personal experience, either of themselves or someone that they know or love. Some of them are students who are trying to figure out if this is a career that they're interested in, the social services piece. I think those are probably the two biggest populations.
Makes sense. Like, here, I'm here to help, and this is the way I'm going to do it.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah.
How do people get involved with the kids?
The kids are a little trickier because of confidentiality pieces. Right. So, in advocacy, there's not really an opportunity for that. In clinical, so outpatient mental health services, we have interns who are studying to become therapists that interface with the kids, and mental health technicians as well. But those are staff positions. So again, there's that confidentiality kind of holds that up a little bit. But in our child welfare department, we have an unaccompanied refugee minor foster care program.
What's that?
So this program's been running for about 6 years, and those are kids from Central America and from overseas who have the legal status of unaccompanied refugee minor.
We just learned about that from World Relief. So.
Yes,
okay.
We interface with them some on that program, through that program, because we're serving similar populations but different, because we're serving kids and they're serving adults.
Sure.
So we're placing kids from Central America. Oftentimes those kids have crossed the border and have been in some type of a shelter before they come to us. But the kids that we place from overseas are generally coming directly from refugee camps. And so the way that the kids get this legal status is they go through some assessments, and it's found that they don't have someone to care for them in their country of origin or wherever they've sought asylum or refuge. And so they're put into this process. There's medical exams, there's psychological exams, there's all kinds. I think there's a 5-step process. And then they go into the resettlement status. And so they don't get to choose the country that they want to go to. That's chosen for them. And then we work with Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Services, which is a national organization, and the Office of Refugee Resettlement for those referrals. So these kids go through all of that trauma. It's actually called the triple trauma paradigm because they have the trauma of whatever made them flee their country, the trauma in the refugee camp or kind of that interim placement, and then the trauma of settling into a new place.
Yeah, a whole new culture. Maybe don't know the language.
Yes, a lot. Are
people having success? Like those kids, are they successful when they get here?
Yes, so successful. I mean, for sure it takes a little bit of time for them to settle in. They're all under the age of 18, and we place them into either independent living group homes, or we place them into foster homes that we license and certify. So it's a pretty small program. We've generally got about 30 kids that we're caring for.
I love you say small. It seems like a lot of people. Yeah.
Well, yes. Yeah. In comparison to our Seattle program, which has at times about 100 kids, but it's also a much larger community.
Sure.
So that is the population, I think, where we do have some option for interface with the kids. We do a lot of independent living work with them, teaching them to become independent once they leave our program. And so we have people come in and do different types of, I can't think of the word I want, meetings. So they come in and they teach them skills. So we've had people from banks come in and teach budgeting and that type of a thing. And then we also, those kids want to drive.
I bet they do.
Yeah.
America, let's drive.
Yes. But getting
especially in Spokane, our bus system's great, but it's still This is a car city.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's a big ask, I know, but there's always a request for people who are willing to let kids get their driving hours, volunteer their car. These kids are amazingly resilient and amazingly responsible because they've had to be. So they look different. Their behavior, the things they know how to do, most of them looks different than what we would see from sometimes a youth who's been raised in the community their entire life.
Sure. I know there's listeners right now who are thinking, they're like, oh, I could just teach someone to drive. All right, I'm in. Yeah.
Yeah. Or, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? That's terrifying. So yeah, there's some things there. We're going to have a school supply drive coming up for kids in that program. And then we have 2 intensive behavioral health programs under our child welfare programming. And that's wraparound with intensive services. So those are serves families who need more than that weekly outpatient therapy, but less than hospitalization. So they need something in the middle.
Yep.
And that's what that program is. And so we serve 20 families at a time in that program, and they have a care coordinator, they have a therapist, and they have a peer support person. So that is a super fun thing for families and for us too, to have peer supports who are people who have lived experience. So they've had similar experiences to the clients that we match them with. And so they have some, they can talk about what it was like for them. And then we have a focus program, which is hospital diversion.
Okay, what's that?
So that's a 30-day program for kids who are at imminent risk of going into mental health hospitalization, which means they're actively wanting to hurt themselves or someone else. And so it's an intensive program where we have a therapist and a behavioral support person go in and support the family. And the thing I love about that program is, one, we're super successful at diverting kids from the hospital. Yes. And secondly, once kids have been hospitalized once, the likelihood of them being hospitalized again goes up astronomically. So if we can thwart those first hospitalizations.
You're really getting in front of things for them.
Yeah.
And it maybe help changing those lives.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So I kind of got off track, but so
it's easy. Yeah. I can't believe, how many different things, Lutheran Community Services is doing.
Yes.
Is that kind of translate across the country? Or just in our region that we have, such a diverse amount of work that we're doing?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. It just depends on the office. I think that ours is probably one of the most diverse around the services that we provide. But we have a program. It's the Greater Puget Sound, and they have more offices, right? Because it's a big geographical
lots
area.
Of people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So they're pretty diverse too. And then we have some that do substance use disorders and mental health primarily. So we all have multiple things that we do, but maybe not as many like small nuances and detail that I'm talking about.
How do you fund all this?
Also a tricky and complicated question. So a lot of
only from another nonprofit, to another nonprofit. It's like we know all these programs take a lot of money.
Yes. Yeah, that is a really great question. So we have contracts. A lot of them are state and federal contracts. And then our advocacy program in specific has tons of like little grants that they've applied for and have to apply for over and over again. At one point, I think there were 16 different funding streams into that program.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a lot of stuff to keep track of.
Yes, it is.
So you have a whole team then for grants and development.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is one nice thing about being the larger organization is we do have a grants writing team and we have an advancement team. So our advancement team works on different events. We have Chocolate and Champagne, which is an event in the spring, which is a fundraiser. Is that your big event? Yes. Yeah. Yes, it is. It's a formal dinner and presentation, super fun. And then we have 8 Lakes Leg Aches, which just happened the 15th, which is a bike ride, fundraising bike ride. So lots of different streams coming into all of those programs to keep them up and running. Donors, we have a really nice, solid group of donors. Lots of people donate to us a monthly amount because they become invested in the programs in one way or another. So
I can imagine. It's like this mission you want to be a part of.
yes. And the Lutheran Church, while we're not a faith-based organization, the Lutheran Church provides us a significant amount of support in multiple ways. So that's also really helpful.
So not only dollars, but maybe volunteers and opening doors. Okay.
Yeah.
Love
it. Yeah.
All right. Well, tell us about the big event, because I saw that this year, on social media and things like that. And it looked fun.
Yes.
Who doesn't like chocolate and some champagne? But what does that look like?
So it's looked different over the years. It was at the Davenport for a couple of years, and this year was our first year at the Convention Center. And it was a beautiful setting. We looked over the river. I can't remember the name of the room, but anyway, it was a great setting.
Up above the river there.
It was
know
ground.
What you're talking about.
It was ground floor.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we had a little VIP reception out on the kind of patio out there, which was beautiful. And there's tons of silent auctions, and then there's also live auctions. So folks come and they walk through the silent auctions, and then they go in and have their dinner and watch the live auction. And for dessert, there's chocolatiers all around, kind of the the outside of the eating area. And so you can go back as many times as you want, and you get to vote. So it encourages you. You don't feel shameful when you've eaten your 6
we're
peanut
just
butter
voting.
cup.
Come on.
I'm trying to figure out which one I like best. So yeah, it's a great event. It's actually focused primarily on our advocacy services. So this year we highlighted something I didn't mention, which is our campus sexual assault services. So our program is on multiple campuses throughout the area to provide sexual assault services for kids who are wanting to come in and talk about something that's happened to them.
And I know that seems to continue to be a gigantic need. I've read that for the last 20 years.
Yes.
And strange question, but like, this is your world. Are we seeing the need increase or decrease over time as I don't know, I'll just leave it right there.
Mm-hmm. Around campus sexual
yes.
assault? I would have to look at the numbers to know exactly, but what I think is we're seeing a little bit of a decrease, only because we have people on campus or working for the campuses educating folks. There's so much more education out there, for sure.
Thank goodness, because it's just insane to me. I'm like, how can this be a thing?
Yeah, and for sure it is still a problem. I think, even if you have that education, when you have people going to parties
right.
and drinking or doing whatever, then their judgment gets skewed. So for sure those things still happen a fair amount, enough that we have advocates on multiple campuses. So,
well, awesome to have that support.
Yes.
And that comes right out of Spokane too.
Yes.
Are you on all the universities?
We are on at Gonzaga, Eastern, and then we're just starting to interface with Whitworth.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that is a great program. I think about my own kids, and if something were to happen to them on campus, and especially if they're going away to school, having someone safe to talk to who has heard this type of thing before, because sometimes that's the hardest part for someone who's a survivor, is they tell their story and the response to that is negative or isn't helpful.
So that can be more damaging, I imagine.
Yeah.
And I think about my daughter and, she's about to go off to college, and like, would I be someone that she could talk to? Could I respond? Well, you think I could be, but I'm not trained.
Yeah.
But to have those resources.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Dang, Shelly, that makes me think.
Yeah, yes, it is a lot of stuff, but a lot of really good stuff. I really think, I started as a therapist.
Yeah, like, how did you get into this world? Like, how long have you been in Spokane?
I've been in Spokane just about 20 years.
Okay, so you're here. You got into your work pretty early then.
Yeah. I grew up in Missoula, Montana, and I studied psychology there. And then my husband and I moved to Oregon, and I got my master's in marriage and family therapy and counseling psychology at the University of Oregon. And even when I was working on my bachelor's, I was working in group homes. I was just always really interested in helping kids, really. And so
So you've been in the social services world for a
long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, a long time.
So then, how'd you get to Spokane then?
My husband was working for the Oregon State Police and got laid off. And so Washington was picking up a lot of those officers because they had good training. And our family was still in Montana. So
you're getting closer.
Yes. Yes. So that's how we ended up here.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been a great place for us to land.
Yeah, what about this community do you really appreciate since you've been here for so long?
Lots of things. I think I appreciate the diversity in services and the social service sector. I think that the different agencies and organizations work well together and do have a real interest in the clients. And so I do feel like, even when people have different perspectives or different ideas about the best approach to something, I feel like this community is really solid in going back to saying what is best for the clients, which is key to good social service. So I appreciate that. I appreciate the events. I appreciate the parks. All of those pieces which people need to live kind of a whole life.
Yeah.
As well as like the skiing, all of those things that are close by, so that people who are struggling with mental health or need to get out and recreate, get out of their heads, I think Spokane has great opportunities for that. So that's fun. I think there's, I love the cultural components, the plays, all the different parks and fairs. I just think there's a lot here for people to enjoy.
It really is. I know, it's an awesome place. I love being here myself. And
yeah.
It's nice to hear from your perspective it's been my experience too, that people that are in the services world, social services, are working together, and it's all about clients. It's all about the people. Mm-hmm. Spokane does big things, right? So why wouldn't we do big things in the service world?
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I mean, they're big systems, and big systems get confusing, so what's unfortunate is that I think there are times that it might not feel like that, or it feels like things are really hard to navigate. And so that's why not only Lutheran, but other social service organizations have what are called like care coordinators or navigators, because we recognize that those systems are hard to get through. And so we kind of put someone on your side to help you walk through it, and or at least educate you about, okay, here you can go this way, here you can go that way. What do you choose? But at least folks know the options that they have.
Well, how awesome is that? Yeah, to have opportunity for choice. And you have someone walking along with you as close or as far as you need.
Yes. Yeah. Incredible.
What are some things on the horizon right now that you're real excited about for your organization?
Mm-hmm. I think we're renewing a lot of our existing contracts and adding some components to those, which helps me feel excited because we're solid and we're steeped in the work that we do. And then I feel like our contractors are seeing the good work that we do and value our partnership. So there are additional components that are being added.
So yeah, good outcomes. People are saying, yeah, let's do more.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Congrats.
Thank you. The organization, I talked about how we're specific to our locale, but also there are some shared programs. I think we're doing a better job of streamlining those so that if there's a community that we're in that it's like, oh, hey, it makes sense to put these services in this community, we're working together so that each community, each program is going to have a nuance so that it matches the community that it's in. But at least we have a template and we have someone who's done kind of those, the stand-up pieces to get that program up and running to help us through those steps. And like I said, I think in the Spokane office, I'm really interested in looking at some additional early intervention pieces. So a lot of our programs are on the other end, kind of the middle or the other end right now. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And I just think there's a great need, like you said, catching things earlier. And I also think that it would be beneficial for our employees to see we're interfacing here too.
Yep,
more,
we're
or
making
just
more
as
of an
much.
impact. We're growing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've met her, Brianna Moth. I know she's volunteering in your organization. She's our HR business partner. So she's on one of a committee, a volunteer committee for you. But she's talked about the work that she's done just as a volunteer and how impactful it's been for her, and brought that back to our organization, and just how supportive she is. And I don't know. You're doing amazing things.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. I appreciate hearing that.
Yeah, well, it's true. Well, is there anything else that we can do, as Good Gabbers? Think about this. How can you get involved? Get on this website. Look at, Lutheran Community Services, and reach out to Shelly. I know she can plug you in.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's just like the work that we do with each of our clients. There are things people are interested in doing. And so we try to make a match to that as best as we can.
Well, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah.
You've got all my personal support, and just,
Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.